and gentlemen, here we go.
Wow. All right, so we're here, MissionTristan, today at Temple Muay Thai in Asheville. This is my buddy Jesse. We give him a chance to introduce himself, his gym, and just tell you a little bit about what's going on here.
Alright, so Jesse Reyna, creator of Temple Muay Thai here in Asheville, North Carolina. And been doing Muay Thai for 6 years now. Been all over the country with several different gyms, and I don't know what else to say.
So tell us a little bit about your background. So you've been doing Muay Thai 6 years. How did you get into it? What kind of keeps you going with the day-to-day?
Shit, that's the hard part. Well, so I started off with jiu-jitsu, and then got into MMA. And I say MMA because it was, it was more jiu-jitsu oriented, and it wasn't a whole lot of striking. And then when I started doing actual fights, I realized that my striking was shit. And I was like, oh, I need to do some really cool stuff, And a guy that I was rooming with at the time was like, yeah, man, Muay Thai is the way to go. And he started showing me a little bit of Muay Thai and where he trained in Houston. And so we started talking about Bang Muay Thai, and it just so happened like 3 months, maybe not even 3, it was like 2 months, maybe less. I moved to Colorado, and that's where Bang Muay Thai is located out of, Greenland, so I went to a gym who worked off the same system, and I was like, great, I was like, this is all kind of just falling into place. So I was like, I'm going to learn as much as I can about striking and get better at it. And so once I started doing it, I was like, man, this is kicking my ass. But my kick started getting better, and I started learning a lot of stuff, and footwork, and in and outs, and loading up on power and stuff like that. And I was like, instantly fell in love with it. And then, to honestly being consistent, throughout the years I really wasn't. I had a lot of back and forth with like mental issues, not mental issues. I just didn't have the right mindset. So I kind of like let alcohol and other things kind of take over, rather than, like depression. I let that kind of stuff take over first, and then like, been in and out, like, I missed this, and I get back into it, and I do it for a couple years, and then 6 months will go by, and it's like you find yourself 30-40 pounds overweight, and you're like, oh fuck, what am I doing? And like get back into it again. And then but honestly, the last almost 3 years I've been very consistent with it and getting better, and other than injuries, I've been tackling it pretty much every day, whether it just be something like 30 minutes to an hour, or actually a couple hours a day. But just kind of exploring all over the country. Like I said, I've been to Colorado, Texas, Nashville, Tennessee. Just learning from different people, different styles, and it just grew more and more. I'm like, I realize there's levels to it. There's different teaching styles, and once you learn different teaching styles, it's almost like starting all over from scratch, but yet taking some, it's like emptying out the cup a little bit to fill in the new knowledge, but like getting rid of the stuff that you don't want, but keeping everything that you've liked from other people, and then just adding to it, and it's like that's really what kind of keeps it fresh.
So you're being the Bruce Lee of Muay Thai.
Yeah,
works throughout the rest.
Well, and it's funny because I read a Bruce Lee book, and he was talking about how coaches who implement their own style, or like push their own style on a student, is actually the wrong way to go. And like like you said, he's kind of learned what's the best from each martial art, and then making it his own. And it's kind of the same thing. It's like, I don't want to tell you that the way that I'm doing it is the best, because you may find a different way of doing it for yourself. Like your body may react better to a certain kick than the way I would do it, or a knee, or elbows, or whatever. And yeah, so it's like learning different styles. And it's funny because I would go to Texas and learn, for a few days, and they would show something, and then I would go back to Asheville. I'd stop off in Nashville, and then they would show the exact same thing, but their style, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I can take a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and then it's like, now it's my own style. It's like, so.
Absolutely. Just to jump back a little, because you touched on themes that are definitely specific to to something I experience a lot. So right, so I've traveled around a lot. I've been to a lot of these different places, as you know. We chatted about. I've been going around on this trip, going all over the country and seeing different styles. And I also have had over the years issues with consistency. Different reasons, but I've had a lot of issues on sticking out and making the time to do martial arts day in, day out. Do you have anything that kind of helps you push through that, or helped get you in that right mindset to get to it more regularly?
You know, there's a guy, Alex Tyler. I don't know if you've met him. He was at Rogue, or he's at Rogue, but he left for Thailand. And when I was at Rogue back in 2016, he came through, you know, and I think he was learning like Krav Maga, and he had really good striking as far as boxing, but you know, he's like, you know, I wanted to kick, I wanted to learn how to do all this stuff, so we started doing Muay Thai, and then like 6 months later I left, but I would still come back like every now and then, and just to see where he was at, and I wasn't progressing. I had got a new job, and I was making a lot of money, and my family was growing. So I just kind of got away from that, and it was more of like, oh, money, 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 money. And then, but like coming back and seeing this guy who stayed consistent every day, and every hour that he could, he was doing Muay Thai, and he was learning on YouTubes and going to different schools and learning from them and picking up little things here and there. And I'm like, holy shit, this dude's getting good really quick.
Yeah.
And it was just because he's doing it every day. And then like listening to motivational videos from like Arnold and anybody who's been successful, really anybody. They're like, honestly, think about it this way. It's like when you are watching a movie, or you're like fucking doing some dumb shit, partying or at the bar, or just doing something other than you're working on your craft. Like someone else is out there doing the same thing and getting better while you're just sitting at home doing nothing. And it's like thinking back on this kid, I'm like, he's a few years less than me. I think he's been, it's probably about 5 years now, maybe going on 5 years. But like thinking where he was, and then every time I'd come back, and it's like, holy shit, this kid's getting better and better and better. And it's like if I wouldn't stop, I would be ahead of him all the time. But it's like every time I come back, he's getting better and better. And then now he's like to the point where he's dumping me, and he's doing all this stuff, and I'm like, this kid, like. So, and not that I'm like trying to beat him, but I'm like, all right, I'm just saying, like, this kid is doing stuff and I'm not. It's like, again, it seems like I'm comparing myself to him, but it's like, all right, go back. Do you really want this? Yes. What do you have to do? Like, you have to do something every day, even if it's just like I said, if it's just 30 minutes, it's 30 minutes more than you probably wouldn't have done.
Yeah.
So it's like, gotta just keep on keeping on, and like, every day I don't do something is a day that I'm behind, is how I feel like.
For sure. Yeah, I definitely feel that.